Are you fed up with the United States right now? We're talking Trump-era politics, polarization, endless fighting, and, well, general cruelty. If so, then this video is for you. I've been watching everything unfold from outside of the United States. I'm living here in Brazil, and honestly, I've just been feeling a little bad for you guys, so I wanted to make this video to see if I can give you some clarity. Hey, I'm Art, and I've lived in multiple countries trying to find where life makes more sense. Where your money stretches, where you feel safe, and where the politics don't make your head want to explode. So I'm going to quickly run through a list of 5 countries that you could potentially move to if you're living in the United States right now, and some of them will be quite unexpected, I think. Let's do this. First country on the list is Malaysia, and Malaysia doesn't get talked about as much as maybe Thailand or Bali, but I think it really should, and here's why. In the capital, Kuala Lumpur, you can get a 1-bedroom apartment for between $400 to $500 a month, and the utilities are just another $50 to $60. If you want to see what a typical apartment might look like in Kuala Lumpur, you can watch this video here after. Now, if maybe you don't want the chaos of a capital city, you've also got options like Penang or Malacca. These are slower pace, more affordable spots, and some of them have some pretty established expat communities as well. But if I were moving to Malaysia, my choice of city would definitely be Kuching on Borneo Island. If you want to know why, you can watch this video up here as well. Another one of Malaysia's top selling points, which is something you guys don't really have in the United States, is healthcare. The system is extremely modern, English is spoken by staff mostly, and it's just a tiny fraction of what you would pay in the US. When I was in Malaysia last year, I definitely took advantage of that system and went to lots of doctor's visits for a very cheap price. Also, all the money that you bring into Malaysia is tax exempt, so that's going to be a really interesting option for people who are retirees or maybe living off savings. Culturally, Malaysia is a melting pot. We're talking Malaysian, Chinese, Indian, and everything in between. And for that reason exactly, the food is absolutely next level because it's often a mixture of all of those cuisines. And if you're worried about the language, don't be, because English is absolutely everywhere. We're talking day-to-day life, street signs, and that makes it easier to navigate than Mexico, for example, if you don't speak Spanish. Now, just like any other country, there are some downsides, of course. So it is hot and humid year-round. So if you're a person who's into seasons, that might be a deal breaker for you. And if you need to go back to the States for any reason, you're looking at a really long flight, 20+ hours one way, right? As for visas, Malaysia actually has a program designed for retirees. It's called Malaysia My Second Home, MM2H. To qualify for that visa, you need to be over 50 and either deposit $35,000 into a local Malaysian bank or prove a monthly pension of $2,350. So it's not exactly zero barrier, but compared to American bureaucracy, it's refreshingly straightforward. Number 2 on the list is Vietnam. Of course, one of the most budget-friendly countries on the planet, so why not move there, right? But it's not just about cheap living, it's also got a lot of growth and possibility going on there. In cities like Da Nang, Hoi An, and Hanoi, you're gonna find lots of thriving expat communities. Often a 1-bedroom apartment can be under $400, meals are between $2 to $3, and the transport is pocket change. All of that means that you can really stretch your money without feeling like you're cutting corners. The visas are pretty flexible. Lots of retirees and long-term travelers start with tourist visas, and then eventually they graduate to investor or business visas if they want to freelance, consult, or maybe even start a small business there. The system does have its paperwork, but it's actually much easier to deal with than a lot of other countries. The healthcare there is improving quite quickly, especially in the major cities that have modern hospitals that cater to foreigners. Day-to-day safety is strong in the expat hubs, and the lifestyle is immersive. We're talking endless street food, a vibrant cafe culture, and just generally being part of a country that feels like it's moving forward. So, for anyone craving adventure with a sense of stability, Vietnam is not just a cheap escape. It's a place to rebuild and reimagine your life. Number 3 on the list is Uruguay. Uruguay is one of the most overlooked gems in Latin America, but for people leaving the US, it does tick a lot of boxes. It's very politically stable, progressive, and consistently ranked as one of the safest countries in the region. Montevideo, the capital, has a laid-back European feel. You've got beaches right in the city, very walkable neighborhoods, and a cafe culture that certainly makes it easier to slow down. The affordability is relative. It's not going to be as cheap as places like Vietnam or Mexico, but healthcare, rent, and food are still a fraction of US prices. You can certainly live very comfortably without luxury for between $1,500 to $2,000 a month, especially if you go outside of the capital, Montevideo, to the smaller coastal towns or maybe even Punta del Este. But what really sets Uruguay apart is how easy it makes the transition for foreigners. The residency process is pretty straightforward. There's no need to buy property or jump through impossible hoops. By the way, cannabis is legal, heyo, and the general vibe is tolerant and open-minded. So for progressives looking for a safe, steady base and a country that still feels connected to the wider world, Uruguay is going to be a seriously underrated option. Number 4 on the list is Costa Rica, of course. This is a classic escape for Americans and for pretty good reason. You've got beaches, mountains, and rainforests all in one small country, and a culture that is really calm and welcoming. It is one of the safest and most stable countries in Latin America, and this next bit of information blew my mind. They pretty much run on almost 100% renewable energy. The residency in Costa Rica is pretty straightforward. You've got the pensionado program, which requires just $1,000 a month in retirement income, while the rentista program works if you can show $2,500 a month for 2 years. And if you're just thinking about going for a visit or maybe staying 3 months, Americans can stay 90 days visa-free. But the real draw of Costa Rica, of course, is the lifestyle. You can go surfing in the morning, hiking in the afternoon, and not consistently worry about political chaos or gun violence. The expat communities are really strong. English is common in the popular areas, and the local ticos or Costa Ricans are famously friendly. So for all of those reasons, starting over in Costa Rica doesn't feel isolating. The trade-off is that it's just not as cheap as a lot of other countries in Latin America, especially if you're staying in the gentrified beach towns. But if you're looking for safety, nature, and values that match your own, Costa Rica is pretty hard to beat. Now, if you're looking for something a little closer to home, the next country has always been an obvious contender. So number 5 is Mexico. It ranked number 4 on International Living's Global Retirement Index for 2025, and the reasons are pretty clear. You've got the proximity to the United States, the low cost of living, and the slower pace of life. And that combo makes it especially attractive if you're not ready to move abroad full-time. What makes Mexico stand out is how familiar it can feel. You've got big English-speaking expat communities and a culture that, in general, welcomes outsiders. So for Americans, it's one of the easiest soft landings abroad, and if you're thinking about retirement, there's a lot of tax advantages as well. That means that there's no inheritance or wealth tax, and tax residency isn't strictly tied to the number of days you're in the country either. But depending on where you are in Mexico, there's no denying that safety is a real concern. In 2023, there were actually 31,000 homicides in Mexico, which is 4 times higher than the United States. But a lot of those deaths, of course, are related to cartel violence. And even though those are the ones that grab the headlines, most expats only deal with things like theft or pickpocketing. So of course, it is very manageable if you pick your city carefully, but it's not something you should ignore either. And another reality is that just like Portugal, a lot of parts of Mexico are experiencing gentrification backlash. The expats have driven up rent in some areas, and of course not everyone is happy about it. So if you're moving there, you do need to be mindful of your impact. As for visas, Mexico is surprisingly easy to enter. If you're a US citizen, you can stay in the country for 180 days visa-free, and that's something I have definitely taken advantage of in the past. For longer stays, you are going to need either a temporary or permanent resident visa, and the requirements are pretty reasonable. You just have to prove financial stability. So in the end, Mexico is very accessible, affordable, and familiar, but it does force you to make peace with all of the safety concerns. So finally, if you're looking for adventure, affordability, and a chance to stretch your dollars, Malaysia and Vietnam are excellent options. You've got Uruguay and Costa Rica for safety, stability, and progressive values that match your lifestyle. And if you're looking for something familiar, practical, and really easy to land in, Mexico is going to be your top choice. Each of these countries gives you a chance to leave the US political chaos behind and rebuild a life that's on your terms. Now, if you want to see what daily life is like either in Mexico or Malaysia, you can just click on one of these 2 playlists here, and I will see you right over there in 3, 2, 1.